In this part of chapter 8, we're going to switch to our water-soluble vitamins. First, talking about one of the main functions with vitamin B is coenzymes. Now, a lot of these come in as what are called coenzymes. So just to briefly take a step here. So there are many enzymes in our body. Remember, enzymes are proteins that help speed up reactions. Okay, a lot of times though, those enzymes are inactive and they need a helper molecule to activate them. And that's where a lot of vitamins are needed. So a lot of vitamins act as coenzymes. So the vitamin comes along, it binds to that enzyme, and then it activates the enzyme. So if we don't have the vitamin, then we never are going to get to that active enzyme. So even though the protein is fine, if it doesn't have the coenzyme, it's not going to be functional. And that's what a lot of our vitamins do. So again, these coenzymes help the enzymes. B vitamins especially function as coenzymes. So without the coenzyme, again, those enzymes don't function properly, and it's like that enzyme is missing. So if we look at vitamin B intake, most diets have plenty of vitamin B. Again, a lot of foods are fortified, just meaning vitamin B is added to them. Again, now we're starting into those water-soluble vitamins. So the excess is excreted, so it's not stored. So toxicities typically aren't an issue because, again, very little gets stored. These vitamin B deficiency are most likely in people with alcohol use disorders, and then others in developing countries throughout the world that don't have enough in their diet. And the food processing actually reduces vitamin B by about 10 to 25%. So unlike some that actually get activated by heating or preserved, our vitamin Bs are ones that as we cook them, they are more likely to decrease in content. So eating raw broccoli is better as far as vitamin B than cooked. A main source of vitamin B is in different grains. So we've talked before about whole grains and refined grains. So refined are the opposite of whole. So these are ones that are your white bread, your white flour, your white rice. So the nutrient germ, the husk are discarded in the processing. So that leads to a loss of vitamin B and other vitamins as well. So therefore, often we'll see enriched. So if you see like a bread that says enriched, then that indicates that there are some others vitamins that have been added. So the processing has taken them out, and this enriching process is adding them back. So this has helped to reduce the incidence of these deficiency diseases because refined grains are so common. However, they are still lower in other nutrients, but this has helped, especially with the thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and folic acid. We have several vitamin Bs. Vitamin B1, also called thiamine, is actually the first vitamin B that was discovered. Its function is to help release energy from carbs. So it's important in that metabolism. So aerobic respiration, the ATP generating process. So during that, as glucose is broken down to release ATP, one of the steps requires a coenzyme. Remember, these are the molecules that help an enzyme work, but it is called thiamine pyrophosphate. So of course, the main component here being thiamine. So not having this vitamin would prevent that enzyme from working properly. But what it does is it is a reaction that releases carbon dioxide from carbohydrates, and then it allows it to be further processed to release energy. So it also functions, besides helping with energy, in the process of making our genetic material, RNA and DNA, but also some neurotransmitters as well. So the deficiency, if it's not there, again, glucose can't be metabolized properly to yield as much energy as normal. So again, with those refined grains, such as the white rice, this is typically where this deficiency is seen, because as we just mentioned, that refining process reduces that unless it is an enriched product where it's essentially added back. The main disease associated with this is called beriberi. It leads to weakness, again, because energy can't be generated loss of appetite, irritability, again, muscle coordination, muscle pain, enlarged heart, and even swelling or edema. It can also called Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. And this is where the beriberi is also associated with alcohol use. So that combination where it's due to that heavy use of alcohol leads to this deficiency. So then how do we get enough thiamine? So mainly it's coming from the protein and again the grains as we've been talking about. There's not an upper limit, so there is no toxicity associated. Again, most of our water-soluble vitamins don't have an upper limit. So where these come into play, so pork products, again, those whole grains, ready-to-eat breakfast cereals, typically because they're enriched, but also refined grains that have been enriched, and then some green beans, milk, orange juice, organ meats, that would be like liver, peanuts, dried beans, and seeds. All right, now vitamin B2, also called riboflavin. Again, also a coenzyme, as we've been talking about. It helps an enzyme do its job. So this makes flavin dinucleotide and mononucleotide, or FAD, FMN. Again, just like vitamin B1, these are important coenzymes in breaking down molecules for energy. It also helps some different vitamin and mineral metabolism for others, and it plays a role as an antioxidant. And again, antioxidants are molecules that help support or protect our DNA from oxidative reactions or free radicals. Now, deficiencies in riboflavin leads to arboroplavinosis, and this is inflammation of the mouth and tongue, as seen here in the picture, cracking of the tongue in the corners of the mouth, dermatitis or an infection of the skin, some eye disorders, sensitivity to the sun, can also cause confusion, and can occur typically with other vitamin B deficiencies. Again, thinking about whole grain or refined grains where a lot of those have been eliminated. So then how do we get enough? So the supplementation actually can cause kind of a bright yellow urine. So the riboflavin actually means yellow in Latin. So again, that deficiency though is especially an issue with alcohol use disorder because of the consumption of food that's low in riboflavin. Again, no upper limit to riboflavin, no toxicity associated with it. So the food sources, again, are grains, but also the dairy that is destroyed, though, by the exposure to light, our proteins like our meat and eggs, and then some of our vegetables, our green vegetables particularly. All right, then vitamin B or niacin. This is used as a function of nicotinic acid or nicotinamide. This is, again, another coenzyme that helps with a lot of different pathways, including making ATP from our carbs and our fats, making an electron acceptor called NAD or NADP, but it's also required to make fatty acids. It uses the same enzyme that helps break down fatty acids is used to build them. So breaking down and building fatty acids is impaired when we lose this vitamin. So that deficiency is referred to as pellagra. So this means like a rough or scaly skin. So this is actually the only one that's epidemic in the United States. So the other ones, again, typically our diet comes into play, but in the 1800s and up to the 1930s, this actually was an issue in the U.S. However, again, today, because of enriched products, the only time that it's typically seen is with that alcohol use disorder. So these deficiencies caused widespread problems, though, because it functions in over 200 enzymatic reactions. Some of the symptoms, again, dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, or like confusion or not remembering, and death. So some of our sources for niacin, it is heat stable, so we're not losing a lot during the cooking process. And it can be made from one of our amino acids, from tryptophan. So much of that can be used again, in order to convert about 60 milligrams of the amino acid to 1 milligram of niacin. However, the sources of niacin itself, so from our poultry like chicken or turkey, tuna, and some other fish, beef, peanuts, again enriched, cereals, asparagus, and then also though in coffee and tea that we can find this. Now, niacin is one of the exceptions of the water soluble where we can have toxic levels, so there is an upper limit around 35 milligrams a day. Now, the reason that these large doses can be used is that sometimes it's used to lower blood lipids, to lower the bad cholesterol. However, because of this possible toxicity, that use is discouraged. There are other ways to go about lowering those. And some of the adverse side effects is called a niacin flush, which is kind of the reddening of the skin. It can also lead to headache and itching, again, kind of affecting the skin there. Usually when it's more than 100 milligrams a day. Long-term uses, though, can cause GI and liver damage. Right, our next vitamin B is B6 or pyridoxine. Again, another coenzyme that's needed for some of those metabolic reactions like breaking down our carbs, lipids, and proteins. Again, amino acids and protein reactions to make those. It can be used to make different neurotransmitters. It's used in that conversion of tryptophan to niacin that we just talked about. But in order for that process to happen, we need vitamin B6. It's also used to make homocysteine, or in that metabolism, used to break down glycogen to glucose. So whenever our glucose levels drop and we need that extra glucose, and to make hemoglobin and white blood cells. Deficiency in B6, as with the others, is mainly reserved for those with an alcohol use disorder. Very different symptoms because it has so many functions in the body. So it can lead to depression, vomiting, skin problems, nerve problems, again, immunity, as well as anemia because of that hemoglobin that it functions for. So because there are so many functions of B6, it has a lot of symptoms when it's missing. So then getting that B6, again, our animal products, again, our enriched or fortified breakfast cereals, but also in our vegetables, so our potatoes, spinach, bananas, and cantaloupe. The B6 in animal foods and fortified is better absorbed than those from the plants. So it's not that it can't, but it may take more of the plant products to get the right amount than it would if consuming them from animal products. Now, the B6 is another example where we can have toxicity even though it's water soluble. So the upper limit's around 100 milligrams a day. So this is mainly only a concern if we're using supplements and those like mega doses or large quantities in addition to our diet, because some tablets can actually contain 500 milligrams. Again, a mega dose, that's much more than what we need. And it can cause nerve damage. So about 2 to 6 grams per day or 2 or more months can cause irreversible nerve damage. Some other symptoms, some gait abnormalities, so that's like a walking abnormality, tingling in extremities, and numbness, and that's due to that nerve damage. All right, so now B5, the pethanoic acid, which stands for from every side. Its function, again, another coenzyme. This is called coenzyme A. Again, it's needed for that ATP release whenever we're breaking down our carbs, lipids, and proteins. Deficiency in this is very rare. Again, it can occur, though, with that alcohol use disorder. There is no known toxicity. And we get B5 from sunflower seeds, mushrooms, peanuts, eggs, milk, meats, and our veggies. All right, then biotin, which is B7. Again, another coenzyme that's needed for those different reactions. Some deficiencies we see, again, all kind of affecting the skin. So loss of hair, scaly skin, and inflammation, changes to the tongue and the lips, less appetite, some GI, nausea and vomiting, anemia, depression, muscle pain, and poor growth. So then how do we get enough of the biotin? Again, no upper limits, relatively non-toxic. Egg yolks, peanut butter, and cheese are good sources. Also, our microbiota, those intestinal bacteria, just like our vitamin K, can synthesize biotin, so that helps decrease the chances of deficiency. Raw eggs bind to biotin and actually decrease its absorption. So why egg yolks have them, if they're not cooked, then it actually decreases the amount absorbed. So high raw egg white intake actually can cause a biotin deficiency because it's binding up all the biotin from other sources. All right, now talking about folate. Folate is very important in cell division. So our cells divide to make more. Again, it's a coenzyme as the others we've been talking about, but it helps to transfer carbons from one molecule to another that is important for forming DNA that is needed for cells to divide. So it also helps metabolize or break down amino acids, including homocysteine, converting it into another amino acid, methionine. And folic acid is very commonly added as a synthetic form, is added to fortified foods. So again, like enriching them, it's adding folic acid that is then used to make folate. Now, folate deficiencies in early red blood cell synthesis, those immature cells can't mature because, again, they're lacking the ability to make DNA. So as the cells get larger, again, they don't have enough DNA to divide. So they form these big megablasts, or like big immature forms that they can't do anything, but they're these large cells in the body. So that folate deficiency is referred to as megablastic anemia, because again, even though the red blood cell is there, it's not functional, so it can't carry oxygen. So it's like not having enough iron. So it leads to that anemia. And the symptoms include tongue inflammation, diarrhea, poor growth, mental confusion, depression, and nerve dysfunction. Folate is very important in development during pregnancy. So a maternal deficiency can occur if low folate levels occur in pregnant women. It leads to neural tube defects in the fetus that can cause spina bifida or an encephaly. So that neural tube usually closes within the first 28 days of pregnancy. So again, some women may not even know they're pregnant yet at this time, but so it is recommended that women take extra folate during pregnancy for this first 6 weeks. In 1998, FDA actually mandated fortification of grain products to increase the amount of folate just to help prevent these deficiencies, and that helped to decrease the incidence of neural tube defects between 15 and 30%. So again, the recommended daily allowance is about 400 micrograms. However, during pregnancy, again, that increases to 600. There is an upper limit of about 1,000 micrograms, referring to that folic acid that is commonly added to foods to fortify them. So those large doses can actually mask a B12 deficiency, which is why too much of that can be detrimental. Now, where we get folate is from our green leafy vegetables like asparagus, also orange juice, beans, again, those fortified or enriched cereals, enriched bread or whole grain breads, milk, and yogurt. Unfortunately, cooking does destroy a large portion of the folate, so those raw consumption of those raw vegetables, again, breads, are better for providing that folate. Now, vitamin B12, moving on to it. So this is also referred to as cobalamin or cyanocobalamin. And this contains the minerals as part of its structure. Its function is related back to folate, so it helps in that metabolism of folate. It also maintains the myelin sheath that's used to go around our neurons, so it helps the neurons conduct action potentials and work properly. Now, as far as absorption, it does bind to a protein in food, so it prevents its absorption. But what happens is the stomach acid releases that B12 from the protein, but it requires an intrinsic factor in order for it to be absorbed. So if anything alters the stomach acid or alters that intrinsic factor, it can decrease the absorption. And then it is stored in the liver. Now, a B12 deficiency Now B12 is only in animal origin foods. So again, vegans who have no animals, again, they're only plant-based. These individuals are at risk for deficiency, and those include neurological symptoms because again, that myelin sheath requires it. Irregular muscle actions because again, their neurons aren't firing properly, impaired reflexes, paralysis, and even death at extreme levels. Pernicious anemia is also possible from a lack of B12 absorption rather than an inadequate folate absorption because again, it helps with that folate. So that anemia due to the lack of B12 helping with the folate, kind of that downstream effect can occur. So then how do we get enough B12? So in older adults, they are encouraged to seek higher, the synthetic form that increases the absorption, just because as we age, that absorption decreases, it's less efficient due to the stomach acid and intrinsic factor production decreasing. So then they need more because less is being absorbed. So our food sources, again, it's only from meats or animal protein or products. So meat, salmon, seafood, milk, eggs, any of those organ meats, but it can be fortified or added. Again, those breakfast cereals, it can be added to as well. Now, moving from our B vitamins to our C vitamins, vitamin C is important for the formation of various proteins like collagen, different connective tissue, or bones, also helping make other compounds like carnitine that's important for transporting fatty acids, some neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and serotonin, very important with our immune health. So it's an antioxidant that helps protect our DNA from those free radicals, again, immune function. It actually may decrease carcinogen productions of chemicals in the acid of the stomach. It is helpful in reactivating vitamin E. It also increases iron absorption. So again, multiple functions here for vitamin C. And those vitamin C deficiencies, again, reduce collagen synthesis. It causes a condition called scurvy, also bruising, bleeding of the gum, and improper wound healing. Little fun fact, in the 70s, the British physician discovered those citrus fruits actually prevented and restored the health of the sailors because they were very prone to scurvy. So it was in the 1700s that they made the connection between citrus fruits and helping prevent that. So getting enough vitamin C, again, within the American diet, vitamin C is easily obtained in our diet. However, it is an issue with tobacco users. So again, the vitamin Bs are an issue with alcohol use, vitamin C with tobacco. So those tobacco users should consume an extra 35 milligrams just to help with that increased oxidation. Again, it's an antioxidant, but tobacco and nicotine exposure creates those free radicals. So to help kind of offset increasing the amount of vitamin B or vitamin C is important. So those citrus fruits, looking at our food sources, strawberries, different vegetables like peppers and cabbage, papaya, cauliflower and broccoli, Brussels sprouts. So the brighter fruits equals more vitamin C. So the riper the fruit is, the more vibrant, the more vitamin C. And of course, our good old enriched breakfast cereals. Now, vitamin C, it does have an upper level. It's a large upper level of 2,000 milligrams a day. Now, the reason that it does have an upper limit is because the increased iron absorption may be problematic. So it's not necessarily the vitamin C itself, but because it increases iron, the increased iron can actually cause a problem, as well as just the kidney's ability to rapidly excrete it whenever it's taken over 100 milligrams a day. So it's just really wasting it and putting extra stress on your kidneys to get rid of it. And it can also lead to some stomach inflammation and diarrhea, as well as GI stress. Next is choline. So choline was recognized rather recently as an essential nutrient in 1998. Its functions are to help with making our membranes. Single carbon metabolism helps important with nerve function and brain development, as well as lipid transport. Now the membrane function, it's a precursor for those phospholipids. So remember, our membranes are surrounded by a bilayer of phospholipids. They have the hydrophilic head, the two tails. Well, choline is important for that because it helps make up that hydrophilic head part. So it's important for making our cell membranes, helps with flexibility, and allows the presence of those water and fat soluble compounds in our cells. Now the single carbon metabolism, so it's a precursor for betaine, and that participates in transferring carbons from one molecule to another. Now, why is that important? It's important for making our neurotransmitters, also changing our DNA during embryonic development. Again, metabolizing that homocysteine, which is a precursor to the amino acid methionine. So because of that, again, adequate choline helps prevent these birth defects. So with the nerve function in brain, so it makes a neurotransmitter acetylcholine that's important with attention, learning, also muscle control, and other functions. And then choline is also important for making sphingomyelin. Remember, myelin is that insulator around our nerves called the myelin sheath, as well as some phospholipids in our neurons. Its role in lipid transport, so it's a component of those lipoproteins. So remember our cholesterol that needs help moving through the blood, it's carried by those lipoproteins. So those are also made up of choline, so the deficiency decreases those VLDLs, which are an important one for getting rid of our cholesterol. So the inability of the liver to export fats, so again, they're going to be maintained in the body, so it results in a fatty liver and scarring, and ultimately causes cirrhosis. So some of the sources of choline, so actually fewer than 10% of Americans meet that adequate intake. So again, of all of the ones that we've talked about, again, the American diet usually has most of our vitamins that we need. Choline is the one that is the most alarming here that Americans really need to watch out for. So there is a wide variation in individual requirements. Again, there is an upper limit of about 3.5, so there is some toxic levels to it. But where we need to look for the choline is in soybeans, our egg yolks, beef, cauliflower, almonds, and peanuts. It is found freer in part of compounds of enzymes that break down the free choline for absorption. It's absorbed by that small intestine, goes to the liver through the hepatic portal vein. It is fat soluble, so some also gets into the lymphatic system. And for this reason, that again, this is one of concern, especially in the American diet, it is recommended to have an egg a day to help provide that source of choline. All right, now if we look at some of the dietary supplements, so this was put out in 1994. So this act said that supplements in the U.S. Is a product to supplement the diet that bears or contains one or more of the different ingredients. So it has a vitamin, a mineral, an herb or some type of botanical, an amino acid, or a dietary substance to supplement the diet. So there was a definition added to what a supplement is. Now, the supplement industry generates about $35 billion annually. They can be sold without proof that they're effective. So the FDA provides very little regulation unless there's something inherently dangerous about them or there's some type of illegal claim that is made. But as far as looking at their effectiveness, that is not something that the FDA oversees. So just looking at the top 5 dietary sales, multivitamins are the most common, kind of a one source, then that's followed by calcium, vitamin D, then vitamin C, and then our different proteins or amino acids. So why do people take these supplements? Again, as we've talked about, except for choline, the American diet, as long as you are consuming a typical diet, a variety of all of our food sources, our vitamins are well supplied. But some reasons for taking them is just the idea of maintaining overall health, filling that nutrient gaps in the diet, reducing susceptibility to problems like cold. So people taking extra vitamin C, trying to boost their immune system. Preventative measures. So again, some have antioxidants, so that helps prevent cancer, or the calcium to prevent osteoporosis or heart attacks, reducing stress, or increasing energy. Now, who should actually take a supplement? Really, this should only be a simple backup to fill the gaps. That's the only reason to actually take a supplement. So the NIH states present evidence is insufficient to recommend either for or against the use of multivitamins by Americans to prevent chronic disease. So again, some people take the antioxidants to help prevent cancer. However, again, at this point, there's not enough evidence one way or the other to make a stance on it. So again, few studies though of the vitamin supplements demonstrate any type of beneficial effect for the prevention of these. So again, eating the recommended servings of fruits and vegetables and grains is the best approach to getting our nutrients. Now, who's most likely to actually benefit though? So those taking multivitamins, so those who have restrictive diets, again, like vegans or vegetarians, that have suboptimal diets based on poverty or just availability, that have different types of malabsorptive diseases where they can't absorb enough of the nutrients, those taking medications that interfere with absorption, older individuals, just again, as things start slowing down and they have less ability to absorb, as well as pregnant women and those in childbearing age in case they become pregnant without knowing it. Again, the vitamin B in the US, really just those who abuse alcohol because that impairs the absorption. Folic acid, especially pregnant women and those in childbearing age. Our B12, again, the strict vegans because that's only in our animal sources, as well as older individuals. Vitamin C, again, commonly used for especially in mega doses to prevent a cold or to help with a cold, but really the only ones who need it are those who use tobacco. Our vitamin D, so again, helping with calcium, so those with limited milk uptake or the limited exposure to sunlight, the vitamin D can be beneficial. Vitamin E, those with low diets or low fat diets. Vitamin K is the one that newborns can't, they don't have the ability to make it because it comes from our microbiome. So again, until that gets established, vitamin K is important for them. Calcium is needed for the strict vegans, again, because they're lacking that dairy, as well as older individuals with bone loss. Fluoride supplements are needed for infants and children, so typically for the dentist is who would recommend that. Iron, those with excessive bleeding during menstruation who are losing a lot of blood, pregnant women, again, strict vegans that have a decreased protein or animal proteins, and then zinc is the same one, those are strict vegans. For the most part though, most of us get all of the nutrients and minerals that we need from our diet. All right, so this is just, again, kind of a supplement savvy approach here. So again, the best way is just having a good diet. Then if that isn't enough, then just using the fortified foods. So again, enriched or fortified foods where they've been added to the food. Then as a kind of a last resort would be a possible multivitamin. If it's not used, then using an individual supplement rather than the multivitamin kind of shotgun approach. So then which one should you choose if you are doing them? So of course, nationally recognized brands, again, little FDA recommendation or oversight, so being careful with these. Those that just have the daily values instead of like the mega doses. So if we only need 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, don't take one that has 2,000. Just take what's needed, the 100% of the daily value. Taking with or just after the meals helps with absorption. And then those sources that are equal, no more than that upper limit. Again, especially vitamin A. So some there's not a toxic for those that are, especially vitamin A. Again, not taking more than is than the 100% daily value. Make sure to read the labels carefully. Look for a USP symbol. That stands for United States Pharmacopeal Convention. Again, it's not FDA, but it's kind of like the US, like the fluoride. Sorry, it's kind of like the ADA for like using toothpaste and stuff. So it's just a little extra mark of approval because they actually review the product strength, quality, labeling, and etc. So that kind of stamp of approval is preferred. So again, just looking at these supplements, things to look at. Of course, the serving size, but that percent of the daily value. Don't take more than 100%, and usually less because you're probably getting some in your diet. Again, looking for that suggested use, but then again, kind of any FDA disclaimers. So just really paying attention to your labels.